Screech by Taran NCT on AO3. Episode 32, Chapter 33. A week had passed since the day President Mike and an unnamed UA student took down the villain that had killed All Might. All for one. And Miri was being summoned to UA to speak to Nezu. He didn't want to go. Well, Yagi Toshinori wasn't a name that was well known. To Mirai, it was the name of one of his best friends, a friend he hadn't spoken to in nearly 5 years, not since he had warned him of this exact event. He had told Toshinori that if he didn't retire, he would meet his ends at the hand of a villain, and he ignored his warning. The funeral was beautiful, he had to admit, but he wished he had at least had the chance to say goodbye to his friend. Mirai had been ignoring Nezu's request for a visit for days now. He just wanted to stay home and mourn the loss of the greatest man he'd ever known. But apparently Nezu has gotten impatient and sent his intern Mirio today with a summons. Mirio was so much like Toshinori that he couldn't refuse the boy anything, even if it was just a message being passed down. So here he was, walking up to the gates of UA, utterly miserable, and wishing he was anywhere else. He was met at the front gate by Eraserhead, who looked equally as miserable as Mirai. Odd. He didn't think Eraserhead was a fan of All Might, so why would his death be affecting him like this? Night-eye. Eraserhead greeted with a tired nod. Nezu's waiting for you. I've been avoiding him, Mirai admitted. He knows. Eraserhead answered with a shrug. He was willing to wait to talk to you, let you work through your grief, but Izuku kept insisting. Mirai glanced at Eraserhead with a crooked eyebrow. Who? You might know him better as Screech. He was a student who fought alongside Mike to take down that villain last week. According to him, All Might had a few final words for you. My ears were ringing so badly at the time I couldn't hear anything, and Mike was relying on lip reading, so Izuku was the only one to hear him. Final message from Toshinori. For him? All of a sudden, Mirai felt bad for dismissing Nezu's request for a meeting. Maybe Toshinori had wanted to tell him who he passed his quirk to, was trusting Mirai with the task of teaching the next holder of One for All. Whatever you're thinking the message is, it's probably not all that. Eraserhead murmured. He only had time for maybe a sentence or two. They had reached the doors to Nezu's office, and Eraserhead hadn't even bothered to slow down. Instead, just kept walking as though the doors would open on their own automatically. They did. Mirai followed him into the office, where Nezu sat on the couch with a young teenager with green hair, playing a game of chess. The kid looked up to them as they entered, smiling briefly at Eraserhead, and then turned his attention back to the chessboard. I just don't think my analysis is all that useful, though. Nonsense, Izuku. Nezu said happily and moved a piece. Your analysis needs some polishing, yes, but this is something we could easily work on between now and graduation. Besides, you can't honestly tell me that you've never once analyzed an opponent before you jumped into a fight then? The kid, Izuku apparently, flushed slightly and picked up a rook. Well, I mean, of course I did. I would need to figure out really quickly if the person I was fighting was weak or strong. I couldn't go all out if my opponent couldn't handle it. I want to catch the criminals, I thought, not kill them. Exactly right. Nezu's knight took the rook Izuku had placed down. Your skills with analysis are one of the main reasons you were so accomplished as a vigilante. But I have looked through your notebooks, and I believe you can become so much more. You are already a fully licensed underground hero. Provisional license, the kid corrected with a squeak. That's just a formality, and you know it. Nezu dismissed with a wave. I am wanting to train you so you can add analytical hero to your license as well. The kid scratched the back of his head. Isn't that a bit much, though? He asked. Mirai felt the kid was right. Underground and analytics? For some, yes, Nezu admitted. It's your move, Izuku. Oh, right, sorry. The kid looked at the board for a moment, and then moved the bishop. Check. Mirai's eyes went in shock. Some kid put Nezu into a check. Nezu. Nezu took the bishop with the knight without blinking. While this is an ambitious goal, Izuku, I feel you have the intelligence necessary to keep up with the training regimen I have planned for you. The kid glared at the board for a few moments, and then sighed in defeat, knocking over his king. How can you say that when I can't even last more than 10 minutes against you? Nezu clapped his paws, as Mirai collapsed into a chair. The kid was able to last 10 minutes against Nezu? You last longer than most, Izuku. Nezu then turned his gaze to Mirai. Shashaki-san, it is so good you made it here, eventually. I'd like to introduce you to my newest personal student, Midoriya Izuku. Izuku, this is Sasaki Mirai, or, as he's more commonly known, Sir Night-Eye. It's nice to meet you, Sir Night-Eye, Midoriya said. I wish it was under better circumstances, though. Mirai nodded. I hear you were the last person to speak with All Might before he... Mirai still couldn't make himself say the words. Midoriya nodded and... Did he just hoot? Oh, that's right. Eraserhead said the kid was Screech, and from what he remembered, Screech was an owl quirk. That makes sense. He wanted me to tell you that he was sorry, and that you were right. Mirai lowered his head. He had already known he was right. His quirk was never wrong, after all. He had seen Toshinori's death. No amount of wanting for things to be different would make things different. Thank you for passing his message, he whispered. Did he mention anything about who his successor is? Midoriya tilted his head a little too far to the side to be normal and chirped indecisively. Nezu is the one who answered. He had spoken to me in depth about the student he had been wanting to pass it to, but I had insisted he speak to the student's guardians prior to making the offer. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, he never did approach Shouta-kun nor Hizashi-kun. Approach us about what? Eraserhead asked. It was a national secret, Nezu stated. One that means nothing now. It was the secret of All Might's quirk. It could be passed down person to person. All Might was the 8th holder of it, and he had wanted to pass it to Izuku. That sound the kid make could only be described as a mix between a squawk and a screech. He startled in stuttered belief at Nezu, opening and closing his mouth with no words coming out, only various bird noises. Midoriya started shaking his head frantically. No way I would have accepted. I'm already pretty strong on my own, and my quirk is already nearly too loud for the line of work I want to go into. He turned horrified eyes at Eraserhead. Can you just imagine me with that kind of quirk? Eraserhead started rubbing his templates. I'm already dealing with a flashy husband way too high up on the ranking. I don't need a flashy son on top of that. Nezu hummed in amusement and nodded his head. Yes, that is about what I expected from both of you, and why I suggested for him not to approach Izuku directly. Well, since he certainly did not pass one for all to Midoriya. Mirai spoke up again. Who has it now? No one, replied Nezu. The quirk died with All Might. Shouta had not been prepared to deal with a grown-ass man breaking down into tears, but that was his day. He groaned in relief as he finally got home and collapsed onto the couch. Hey, Sho, are you okay? Hizashi asked as he came out of the kitchen. Shouta glanced at the clock and saw it was about the time Sashi normally started on dinner. Yeah, just a long day. Never thought I would have to see Sir Night-Eye cry over All Might's quirk, of all things. He grumbled as he stood back up to give his husband a kiss. Oh, they mentioned that? Hizashi shrugged. All Might approached me about the end of the week. All Might approached me about that the week of the finals, and I told him if he ever attempted to bring that flashy quirk anywhere near my son, either of my sons, he needed to learn JSL because he would be no coming back from hearing loss. Shouta snorted and rested his forehead against Hisashi's shoulder. I probably would have defenestrated him. It was Hisashi's turn to snort. He ran his fingers through Shota's hair and said, Yeah, he hinted that I was a safer option to talk to, since he knew there was no way in hell I was letting that quirk anywhere near the boys. I didn't bother mentioning it to you. He didn't approach Izuku about it, right? Shouta shook his head. Izuku was just as blindsided as I was when Nezu mentioned it, and he only did because Night Eye asked about it. Should have pulled back from Hizashi. Go finish dinner. I'll make sure the other thing is ready for after. Izuku poked his head out of the bedroom door. What other thing? Stop eavesdropping, you menace. Shouta smirked. Just like how they had planned, Keigo dropped off a few moments after dinner and kept the boys occupied while Hizashi packed up the leftovers and Shouta got started on the dishes. They had 2 things to discuss with the boys, and 1 decision to make, and Hizashi hasn't been more excited in ages. When are you gonna stop flying into billboards? Hizashi heard Hitoshi ask Keigo. Excuse me, but flying isn't as easy as it looks, he retorted. You have to take the wind's direction into consideration, the temperature, any currents that may pop up, and all the while keeping an eye out for anyone needed in help. There was an ad for KFC, wasn't there? Izuku giggled. Keigo huffed in embarrassment and murmured, Yes, there was an ad for KFC. Shouta snorted as he finished drying the last dish. You ready, Sashi? He nodded. I'll go get it, he said, and went to their bedroom to get the envelope. Soon, he was joining the others in the front room. Okay, kids, there are some news and a decision that needs to be made. Hizashi lightly tapped on the envelope and then smirked. This will come second. First, Shouta said, drawing most of their attention. Nezu had decided to convert UA into a boarding school, so in a few days, we'll all be moving onto campus into the newly built dorms. I'm going to be talking to the parents of all of 1A, and Hizashi will be talking to all of 1C, so we won't be around much for 2 days. It'll take for all the families. Don't spread this to the other hellspawn yet. He glared at Hitoshi and Izuku until they both nodded. Good. Shouta turned to Hizashi. Now it was his turn to deliver the news. Izuku has been living with us since February, and now it's August. Do you remember back in April I told you that we wanted to adopt you? Izuku's eyes widened and he nodded, grabbing Hitoshi's hand in the process. Yes? Well, Hizashi continued with a huge smile. Part of the process is you have to have been living with us for 6 months before the process can be completed. And it's been 6 months. He opened the envelope and handed Izuku the official adoption documents. You're ours now, baby bird. Izuku promptly burst into tears and lunged at Hizashi and Shouta, wrapping them both in a tight hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you! He managed to get through his tears. Shouta and Hizashi both had their arms tightly around Izuku, hugging him close, and they were soon joined by both Keigo and Hitoshi. You're stuck with us now, Izuku. Hitoshi laughed, face full of green hair. The 4 of them stayed like that for a good few minutes before Shouta said, The last thing is for you to make a decision, Izu. What's your new name gonna be? They all pulled back, but Izuku managed to squeeze himself in between Shouta and Hizashi. I hadn't really thought about it, he admitted. When I was adopted, they didn't give me a choice, Hitoshi interjected. Both Dad and Pa were still fairly new heroes, and they didn't want to risk anyone linking me to them, so I got Dad's mom's name. Keigo croaked his head. I thought Shinsou was your original name. Hitoshi shook his head. I don't actually remember what it was before Dad found me. I was rarely ever called anything for the polite company. The only reason I remember my given name was because the teachers at school had to write my name on the classwork. Hitoshi shrugged. Doesn't matter though, I love my new name, and that's all I care about. So, I can choose between Aizawa, Yamada, or Shinsou? Izuku asked. You can choose any name you want, Hizashi corrected with a wink. He added, You can even choose Kaminari if that's what your little heart wants. Pa! He shrieked, much to the amusement of the rest of the room, and buried his face into Hizashi's shoulder. Izuku didn't pull away for a few minutes, but when he did, he had a thoughtful look on his face. I'm legally your son, and Hitoshi's legally my brother, but I also consider Keigo to be my brother. You better consider me your brother, Owlet, Keigo huffed with a smile. Izuku gave Keigo his biggest eyes and asked, Is it okay if I choose Takami for my name? That way, even if we aren't legally brothers, we're still brothers. Keigo started tearing up and he opened his arms for Izuku. Come here, little brother. Izuku jumped into his arms and held on tightly. Of course you could use Takami, of course you can. Shouta picked up the documents from the floor where it had dropped during the family hug and wrote, Takami Izuku for their son's new name. Alright, well we're 5 chapters before finishing this. I wonder what's going to happen in those 5 chapters. Are we going to figure out what happened to Bakugou? Can we figure out what happened to Dabi, Magne, Twice, Toga? Can we see them? Are they going to be okay? Are they okay? Are they good? Yeah? No? Please tell me they're good. As for what fanfic is going to be taking over this slot, it is another found family. It is a different ship. It is, I think it's a ship, centric fic. Let me see. Yeah, it is a ship centric fic. It's gonna be really nice. It's gonna be really sweet. There are gonna be some videos that are age restricted for certain reasons, if you get what I mean. It's a racer mic. I will say that it's a racer mic. So there's gonna be I saw some of the tags, alright? Those tags weren't there before when I first found the thing. I think. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to the tags because it was a razor mic. I was like, oh, fuck tags. Who cares about tags? That was before I started monotonously. I listed that into the, put that into the list before I started monotonously looking at tags. And I was just waiting for the author to finish up. And they finished up a while ago. Except I was busy doing some other stuff, and I think they finished up like a month or 2 ago, fairly recently. So I'm going to go ahead and add them into the quo, and they're going to be right next because they were supposed to come a whole long time ago. For that author, hey, thanks for waiting up so much. I know it's been a while. I contacted you. It's literally about to be 6 months since I contacted you about your fanfic. You're probably not listening to this, but yeah. Other than that, I wonder where we're going to go in the direction of Screech. Again, I want to know what happened to Magne, Twice, Dabi, and Toga, okay? I need to know. What happened to Bakugou? Is he dead? Did he die? Is he 6 feet under? Yes? No? No? Yes? No? Yes? 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 No? Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.